So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this breakout session as part of our Essential Skills Summit 2026. I'm Alex Stevenson, I'm Deputy Director at Learning and Work Institute, and this is one of two breakout sessions. And you've already heard this morning, if you've been in the main session, from our fantastic learner panel and some reflections on the role of wider public services like libraries in engaging people in learning. Today, we want to focus in this session, on the sort of many and different relationships between essential skills and work. And we heard from Professor Uta Papan there about how this is an important motivation for many. And I think that's timely because um, we know that for many adults, learning essential skills work is one of the key motivations. There are opportunities in the policy landscape, thinking particularly about the move of the Adult Skills Fund under DWP. So does that mean that there's a better chance now of things being more joined up between learning skills and employment? But we are thinking very broadly about the sort of different interfaces between essential skills and work in this session. So we'll be thinking, for example, not just about the links between essential skills and employment support. We'll be thinking about how does that fit with supporting young people who may not be in employment, education or training. What is the role of place-based and community support in engaging people in learning and skills and in employment support? And also, hopefully, in the workplace as well, because I think sometimes things like literacy and numeracy and basic skills are kind of thought of as being about supporting people into work. But we know that many people who are in work can also benefit from opportunities to upskill in those things, and there are business benefits from that as well. So hopefully, a little bit later on, we'll be hearing about support for essential skills in work as well. So, to do all of that, we've got a great panel of speakers with us. Um, so we have, first of all, we have Philip Mills, who's a program manager at Clarion Futures, which is part of the Clarion Housing Group. And he's worked across the voluntary sector, housing and education for many years, supporting care leavers and underrepresented communities into skills, training and sustainable careers. We're also joined by Alice Eardley, who is Deputy Chief Exec of Get Further, which is a charity supporting students from disadvantaged backgrounds in further education to secure Gateway English and Maths qualifications. So we'll be hearing from Alice as well. We're very pleased to be joined by Sarah Khan from the Skills and Employment Unit. She's a strategy and relationship manager there at the Greater London Authority and has been working particularly on the inclusive talent strategy, which has a lot of links with essential skills. And we'll be looking forward to hearing a bit more about that later on. And I'm also hoping that we will be joined by Kirsty Marsh-Hyde from NHS England. I'm not sure if Kirsty is on the
Hi,
call.
Alex. I am here.
Oh,
Yeah,
brilliant.
I'm
Welcome,
having
Kirsty.
some tech problems, but
So
I am here. Yeah.
that's all right. So Kirsty leads on apprenticeships for NHS England and also the Skills for Life portfolio, which includes fundamental numeracy, literacy, and digital skills. So that's where we'll be picking up on some of the in-work dimensions of this as well. So to kick things off, I'm going to ask each of our panelists for a sort of short overview of their work and how essential skills fits into that. And then we'll get more into a discussion and questions. We are in a slightly more interactive format now, so you can put questions in the chat as they occur to you, and we will have opportunities to pick up on some of those as we go through. We're in a normal Zoom room now, so if people really want to, they can come on camera and microphone and ask questions in person, which you were barred from doing in the main session, but that's now feasible. So if you do have questions, we'll try and pick up some of those as we go through. So Philip, if I could come to you first of all. So tell us a bit about the work that you're doing and on sort of, I know that you're working on our Jobs Plus employment support program at the moment, but also your wider work. where do you see the opportunities for essential skills and the role of housing associations in supporting people to get those skills?
Oh yeah, thanks, Alex, and yeah, it's great to be here. First and foremost, to be part of this conversation. So my name's Philip, and I work currently with the Clarion Housing Group's charitable foundation called Clarion's Futures on a pilot program called Jobs Plus. Jobs Plus is in its third year now. It's funded through the DWP and initially managed by Learning and Work Institute and previously as well funded through Youth Futures Foundation. I've spent 20 years planning, designing, managing holistic employment support programs. Um, Having, worked from grassroots kind of organizations and projects in the community to working alongside infrastructure organizations and anchor organizations to deliver regional and national programs as well. That include Jobs Plus, but also I founded a social enterprise myself called Building Pathways. Um, Also worked with Bernardo's on a Building Hope Academy program that was working specifically with air leavers to go into the construction industry. But yeah, my background is varied. These different groups in different settings often access the services in their community. Um, I'm a youth and community trained qualified, I guess, practitioner from my mid-20s, and I've really committed that approach to every area of the work that I've done. So it's always been about um, the people that the services are geared for. It's about keeping them center and keeping them at the focus of everything that we've done. So through that varied industry experience, I've worked with young people from disadvantaged backgrounds to parents who are re-entering the workplace, looking for career changes potentially whilst they're raising families. For over 50s that have faced discrimination, going back into the workplace as well after long periods off work or made redundant, definitely after COVID, and international students as well that are navigating the system with trying to get work on visas and having language issues. So, yeah, for me, when I look at employment support, I'm really pleased that there's a conversation around bringing essential skills and employment outcomes together. I do not see it in isolation. I think it should be done as part of a holistic support package for people to move forward into the workplace. But yeah, with employment outcomes, I can't separate that from structural barriers that people face in getting into work in the first place. And from my experience working with young people, particularly that have been disconnected from education, not because they lacked ambition necessarily or um, confidence. It's often that they didn't have the networks or access to the information, or sometimes the confidence to actually participate. Also for the over 50s that I've worked with in the past as well, um, they faced various biases going into the workplace and having to overcome that sense of feeling not worth the risk or a little outdated. That's the real barrier for them. So when I think about employment, when I think about essential skills, I also have to put that within the context of structural barriers that people do face that are not necessarily skills related. But yeah, pleased to be in this conversation today. I look forward to seeing what people's ideas are around how the DWP integration, particularly of essential skills and employment outcomes, can benefit people in the long run. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Philip, and I'm sure we'll be coming back to you later on in the discussion for to think about that sort of holistic join up of programs and some pointers on how we make that work in practice. If I can come next to Alice, please, and tell us a bit about the work that you're doing at Get Further.
Yes, thanks, Alex. And I've just lost my notes. There we go. Hi, everyone. Very nice to be here as well. My name's Alice Eardley. I'm Deputy CEO of a charity called Get Further. We're a national charity that works with young people across England and adults who are out of employment or in apprenticeships to support them to gain gateway qualifications in English and maths. I think everyone here is well aware it's very difficult to overstate the importance of English and maths, particularly for supporting young people who want to remain in education, for those who want to make progress in education, or those that want to transition into sustained employment. Despite this, 1 in 3 young people leave school every year without a grade 4 in GCSE English and maths, so the qualifications that they need to make that progress. If we look at young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, this rises to 1 in 2. So we're looking at around 200,000 young people each year who don't get those qualifications. Without these qualifications, those young people are obviously locked out of many further opportunities for education and training, for future employment. And I thought I'd give you a few statistics. There's a lot of information out there about the sort of short and long term consequences of not getting these qualifications, but just to give you a few. Only 1 in 3 16-year-olds without a grade 4 in GCSE English and Maths will go on to study a higher level qualification the year after they leave school. So the rest will be doing a qualification at a similar level to what they've done or lower. Lacking GCSE English and Maths is the single biggest shared characteristic of young people who are long-term NEET, so not in education, employment or training. And young people from disadvantaged backgrounds without these qualifications are 131% more likely to be NEET than the average. So there's a very clear connection between lacking English and maths and being out of employment and education. And then obviously there are longer term consequences. So missing out on a grade 4 by just 1 grade in English results in an average loss of lifetime earnings of around £50,000. That's just for 1 grade. And for maths, this is around £75,000. So we can start to add up the impact on people's lives. Qualitative studies also point to young people's awareness of the importance of these qualifications and the consequences if they don't get them. So a recent report from South Yorkshire highlighted that 9 in 10 of the NEET young people that they spoke to identified a lack of English and maths as a barrier to securing college places or employment. So at Get Further, we believe in the fundamental importance of securing these qualifications. It is about skills development, but it is also about getting that piece of paper that shows everyone else what you can do. And we work to put in place interventions that will support young people to achieve those qualifications. So one of the ways that we do this is through small group tutoring. So there is a lot of evidence out there that confirms that small group tutoring, particularly for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, is highly effective. This year, we're working with the Education Endowment Foundation on a big national randomised controlled trial to better understand the role of this tutoring in supporting post-16 learners with their English and maths. So there's lots of evidence from other age groups and other sectors, but we really wanted to understand what effect tutoring has on the cohort of young people we work with specifically. We also work with apprenticeship providers to support their learners to achieve the English and Maths qualifications they need. And we partner with local councils to provide small group tutoring in functional skills for young people who are NEET. And as Philip has just described, as part of that wider package of employability support and wraparound support that those young people need. From a policy and systems perspective, there's a couple of things that we're focused on in this area. So we're currently leading a coalition of organisations that are campaigning for a 16 to 19 student premium. So at the moment, pupil premium funding for disadvantaged school children stops when they reach the age of 16. There isn't that ongoing intervention support for young people beyond the age of 16. So we're looking to campaign or bring about that funding that would support interventions for things like qualification attainment, preventing young people from becoming NEET, and supporting young people out of education and into employment. A student premium would support those who are already engaging with mainstream education, but we are also thinking about those who, for some reason, aren't engaging, struggling to engage. So we speak to lots of local councils, combined authorities about their NEET provision. This provision is often exclusively focused on the softer skill development and the employability support. So one of the things we're very keen to highlight is the role of English and maths in supporting that progression. It does need to be part of that wider package of support. So part of this work, because understandably one of the barriers to this is funding at a local level, is making the case locally and nationally for the investment in qualifications for this cohort. So overall, just to wrap up, we think we need a more flexible, responsive and joined up approach that recognises the role that English and maths qualifications play in securing the futures of young people, particularly those who are NEET and those who are struggling to move forward in their education. I will stop there. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alice. And I'm sure many of us would have been struck by those really powerful stats and numbers on the impact of not getting those English and math skills and qualifications early in life. And you already started to move us on there to some of the pointers as to, how we might start to approach some of those challenges as well. And I think that takes us very nicely next to Sarah, who's going to talk to us a bit about the work that the GLA are doing on this agenda. And one of the sort of big dynamics in the policy context at the moment, of course, is the shift towards greater devolution of programs, including the Adult Skills Fund, which is supporting a lot of adult literacy and numeracy provision, but also there's many employment programs are being devolved and or commissioned with the involvement of Metro mayors and so on at the moment as well. So there's an opportunity there to start pulling things together at a more local sort of place-based level. So Sarah, over to you and tell us a bit about the GLA's priorities in this area.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Alex. And good morning to everyone. Good afternoon to everyone. Thanks for having me here. So as Alex said, we've been doing a lot of work at the GLA and working in partnership with London councils on how we can meet the London growth plan's ambitions to grow productivity. And a kind of major part of that is about how we grow our skilled workforce. So last year we published the inclusive talent strategy, and that really speaks to the distinct challenges that London has around employment and skills. So firstly, trying to address how we help those furthest from the labour market and those with significant barriers to secure work and progress into employment. And secondly, how we can ensure London's employers can easily recruit, retain and support the talent that they need. And addressing both of those two challenges will in turn then help with inclusive growth and that kind of vision for growth that meets with the Mayor's vision and the National Industrial Strategy as well. So within the inclusive talent strategy, the vision that we've laid out there is really about how we can work in partnership. So with the partners on the call, with health, with community grassroots organisations, with both skills and employment support providers and careers providers to tackle inactivity and progression barriers and kind of better integrate and bring together that system, and also to place employers at the centre of this work. So the aim is to create these kind of clear pathways for all Londoners into good work, as well as employers being able to find the skills that they need. So for Londoners or learners more generally, facing multiple structural barriers to work, gaining essential and transferable skills are the first step of their journey into the job market. And kind of heard such important statistics from Alice just now in relation to how essential skills are so critical for that journey. And at a time when we see high rates of unemployment, essential skills really are key to that solution, but not just because they act as that stepping stone, but also because they have so many other benefits, such as building social inclusion, well-being and confidence, which are really critical when someone's seeking and finding work. And we do have evidence of that social impact through our London Learner Survey, where 94% of people who have attended adult skills funded courses report positive social outcomes. And so we've seen, and this has been highlighted throughout the summit today, and particularly through the really powerful learner journey stories that we heard at the beginning of the summit, that as well as lifting people out of poverty and moving into further learning and work, that these skills are so important more widely as well to address structural barriers. Kind of moving a little bit towards the way in which skills devolution can help us in bringing this opportunity even in an even more focused way to boost essential skills outcomes. We know, of course, there's been progressive devolution of certain adult education functions, and the Adult Skills Fund, or ASF, which was formerly the AEB, as the professor pointed out this morning, has been delegated to the Mayor of London since 2018. And that fund is the Mayor's primary tool for delivering adult education and supporting Londoners into good work. And through the ASF, over 1.5 million Londoners have accessed learning since devolution. And we know much of that funds essential skills learning. And so through that devolution, we've been able to introduce a range of London-specific flexibilities to benefit Londoners that are unemployed, earning below the London living wage, disabled and seeking asylum. And the Mayor has therefore used his devolved powers to make the capital's Adult Skills Fund one of the most accessible adult education offers in the country. And then more recently, National Government has awarded London a 3-year integrated settlement from 2026 to 2029, bringing together the Adult Skills Fund, skills boot camps, a construction skills package due to that kind of focus on that sector and home building, and also Connect to Work, their employment support programme. So this will help us to further invest in delivery programs that meet employers' needs, as well as use innovative models such as community partnerships, workplace learning, and outreach approaches to help adults who may be less likely to engage through mainstream provision. One example is the London Talent Pathway programme, which replaces the Jobs and Skills for Londoners programmes from August this year. And that programme is focusing on priority sectors aligned to the London Growth Plan and employer demand. It's vocationally focused, but providers can also embed or co-deliver essential skills learning alongside that, and gives learners a route to both build foundational as well as job-related skills. It can also help us be responsive to other demands relating to, devolution can also help us be responsive to other demands relating to essential skills, such as essential digital skills, which is increasingly a cross-sectoral demand. And the Mayor is committed to extending the free digital skills to level 2. And it can also help us join up better the approach to supporting people in learning, work, careers and health. So we already have some models of that, such as the No Wrong Door programme, and also piloting work through the Get Britain Working Trailblazers, which are focusing on young people and people who are prevented from being in work because of their health. And so this approach of placing employers at the centre of inclusive growth and ensuring Londoners can find the right training pathways and addressing barriers to talent are the three kind of main tenets of the inclusive talent strategy. So devolution can help us meet those. And I think throughout the three tenets and throughout the kind of programmes that are possible through the skills devolution, I think we can point to, but also kind of work with you all to ensure that essential skills are woven throughout those. I'll stop there, Alex. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And before we move on to our final panelists, just a reminder that you can put any questions that you might want us to pick up in the discussion in the chat. So please be thinking of those. But I will now go to Kirsty Marsh-Hyde from NHS England, and we can talk a little bit more about the in-work context and the opportunities to support people with essential skills in the workplace. So Kirsty, welcome.
Thank you, Alex. And like everyone, thanks for the invitation to be here today. I'm sure it doesn't surprise anyone to know that I agree with everything that has been said. Really resonated with me what you were saying, Philip, about placing this within structural barriers. I think that's really true. And I think there is such a co-relationship between these things that to not approach it in that way would be very short-sighted, I think. So as Alex has said, I work at NHS England, but today I'm talking on behalf of the NHS and the health and care sector as a whole. The NHS is the biggest employer in Europe, so it just stands to reason by numbers that, of course, there would be essential skills conversations to be had about the workforce existing and those that we are hoping to attract. So to ignore English and maths as a skill set in the context that we've all been talking about would also be short-sighted. So NHS England, and previously the arm's length body that went before it, Health Education England, invested in a national essential skills portfolio. And that means that there is some money coming out of the centre to support employers across the country, whether they are big hospitals or small care homes or GP surgeries, to support either staff in post who don't have grade 4 or equivalent, or those who are working to a different level, because of course some students are working to a different level, and particularly if you have SEND needs or additional needs, you might not be working to level 2. There might be a different place that you're working to. But in supporting those in-work individuals to get those qualifications, and also how that support can be dovetailed into a suite of pre-employment support, how that may look in different employers across different parts of the country in different circumstances, in order that those people can have those skills sometimes on arrival, but usually as part of their employment journey. There are many reasons why this is particularly important in health and care. We've touched on a lot of the big numbers and the kind of structural reasons previously, but there are some specifics within health and care. So for instance, it's quite hard to get onto what we call registered programs without English and maths. So that is your nursing, your psychological professions, your occupational therapy, all of those kind of roles. Most of those are either via an apprenticeship or via traditional study route degree professions. And even though there are some universities that will accept certain other qualifications or recognition of learning in a different way, for the most part, if you don't have a GCSE or a functional skills qualification, you're not able to progress into those roles. And as I'm sure most people understand, there is a workforce crisis in the NHS. So it seems really silly that we've got people in the workforce who want to progress but aren't able to because of this particular skill set. And it really is about this particular skill set when we're having this conversation. Of course, there are other barriers to progression throughout the workforce, but just on the interventions that we fund, and I can tell you a little bit more about the details of that in a moment, we have around 60,000 people studying on those platforms at the moment. So that gives you a sense of how this particular skill set is speaking to these vacancy rates and the lack of opportunities for some parts of the workforce. So there's so many things that we would love to do if we had a bigger budget. Listening to Alice speak about small group tutoring is something that we would certainly like to do. There's certainly a gap in provision in terms of teaching, and I'm sure we could have that as a much bigger conversation. Wouldn't it be amazing if you could have an English and a maths teacher in every large NHS trust? I did once pose that to a minister. I'm not giving up on it yet. But as you can imagine, that is a big envelope, and that comes with a lot. But not everyone knows that in several large NHS trusts they do employ teachers. So that is an actual job role in a lot of several trusts across the country. Unfortunately, again, I'm sure this doesn't surprise anyone greatly, but those kind of roles have been vulnerable in cuts. It's not seen as essential as other parts of workforce provision, which is difficult, even though I've seen some colleagues do some great work in making the case for these roles. Demonstrating return on investment can be tricky, because often these learner journeys are long, and everyone's under huge pressure to deliver results very quickly and against high financial targets. But so as I say, in some trusts there are teachers, but in the absence of being able to fund one of those in every place, NHS England funds three main things. So a platform for study, so that people can log on. They take a kind of assessment tool thing where you see your current skill level, and then you are generated an individual learning plan, and you follow that learning plan through. It has your desired outcome level at the end. So lots of people are working to level 2, GCSE level. And once you're consistently answering questions at that level, then it will say, if you would like to take an exam at this point, a functional skills exam, then you can feel confident that there is a good chance that you would pass. The second part of the process that we fund is the exam itself. So this can be done, taking exams and doing this study can be done in partnership with colleges, with training providers, and is done by lots of NHS trusts. But the reason this extra layer is provided by the centre is because, for various different reasons, NHS and health and care employers were finding it hard to access that kind of provision, either because of things like the shifts of the learners, or personal commitments of learners, or the fact that their local college wasn't doing things outside of particular times, time frames and stuff like that. So that's why the online solution works for some people. The exams can be taken in a number of ways. Some choose to do it in person, but the majority do it online in a forum very, very similar to this. So on a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, the communication aspect is coordinated so that you're with other people, and the rest is done in controlled conditions in order to facilitate that exam. The third part of the portfolio is funding a DFE service, which is around comparing overseas qualifications to their UK equivalents. So we've heard consistently from NHS employers that they will have staff who have a qualification from overseas. The individual says, I believe this to be equivalent of a GCSE, but of course somebody needs to authorise that. So we fund that, NHS England funds that on behalf of the sector, so that A, the individuals don't have to pay for it, and B, the employers don't have to pay for it out of their particular budgets. That to me makes perfect sense as a national contract, because the efficiency in terms of paying for it that way, as opposed to multiple employers paying for that, it's a massive difference. So that's a kind of a snapshot of how things are working in health and care at the moment. I don't know how many people on the call are close to the movements of the health and care landscape, but there is a lot of change. And NHS England as an organisation, for instance, closes down as a legal body at the end of this financial year. There is mirroring lots of other government decisions, a move to localisation, which could be a very, very positive thing. But we also have concerns about where this agenda may fall within that, and will it still be nationally resourced in some sense? If not, what does that look like? Where do people go for support if they're not experienced in this kind of program management or this sphere? So that's the kind of run through of how things are with us at the moment, Alex. Hope that's okay.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you, Kirsty. And it's a really important reflection on the role of particularly major employers and public sector employers in general, as the contribution that they can make towards this essential skills agenda, which I think is going to be really important if we do shift the dial on those 9 million adults with low essential skills. I'm really keen now to sort of dig into some of the practical kind of insights into how we actually sort of create sort of more holistic and joined up offer or programs around essential skills and work. Because many of our panelists so far have kind of like hinted at things. So, Alice, I was really struck by what you said about sort of positioning the literacy and numeracy as kind of central within sort of other programs that maybe target employability. And we hear there's all kinds of definitions of employability skills, transferable skills, essential skills, and some of those sort of feature English and maths to a lesser or greater extent. But I think from what you're saying, you're sort of pushing for the English and maths to be absolutely fundamental as part of that. And how does that sort of look like when you actually join that up with other features of the programs as well?
Yes, I think for us, starting from the data, so those stats that I shared, I think it's really obvious that English and maths is one of the major barriers. And I think as you described, people are thinking about it in pockets. So we're looking at this need crisis and we're looking at the numbers of young people that aren't in education and employment. Lots of activity is happening, but I think from our perspective, as an organisation that focuses exclusively on English and maths, it's not getting the prominence that really it should have. I think from our perspective, English and maths should be built into every programme of employability support for young people, because what we're finding is that young people might receive other kinds of support, and then they start applying for things, they start talking to employers, they start looking at college courses, and the English and maths comes up again as a barrier. And really that's why I included that interesting survey from South Yorkshire, where they were actually speaking to young people who are NEET. And there's obviously a recognition within that group as well around the importance of these qualifications. I think in terms of how we make this happen on a practical level, I think there are solutions out there. I know lots of FE colleges are working on this challenge. We are, as a national charity, we're out speaking to everybody that we can do, in terms of thinking about more flexible provision for those young people that are struggling to engage with mainstream education. I think from our perspective, the solutions are out there. Some of it is joining up these conversations. So there is an awareness around the level of need and the crucial role that the qualifications play.
Thank you. Yeah. Philip, does that resonate with your experience as well in terms of creating these sort of holistic programs of employment support that sort of embed essential skills within that?
Yeah, 100%. It does. And, I've got a couple of examples just thinking about how that's been done, where it's worked well. And obviously Jobs Plus is the first one that I'll go to, because it is a pilot and we're testing a place-based, hyperlocal approach within communities where the housing associations that are delivering Jobs Plus have relationships, existing ties with the community, and they're able to offer all the support in one place. So, for example, essential skills coaching is directly linked to the employment support that is offered within a Jobs Plus hub, alongside wellbeing support, digital support, money advice, and in-work support as well, where the essential skills has been described just now around literacy isn't just done at the pre-employment stage. It's also offered in work as well, alongside the coaching to help people to get settled into the world of work, or for those that want to progress within the workplace, getting upskilled and opportunities to access ongoing learning even within the workplace. So, yeah, the Job Plus model for me is of where you've got collaborating around the needs of the community or the individuals within that community that they're working with, really. Also, having worked with care leavers on care leavers programs at the University of Roehampton, a previous opportunity that I had to deliver on a project called ICANN, which was supported young people from that background into education, but also into the healthcare sector as well. So that was funded through the South West London ICP at the time. And the idea was to open up opportunities for care leavers that lived within South London that wouldn't traditionally go to university for a start, them get access to information, advice, guidance around, and the training to equip them for the world of work and opportunities within the healthcare sector particularly, and embedding functional skills alongside that. So the functional skills was done in context. It was applied to the job, and it continued with the individuals that went on after the course to go into university. If they needed essential skills to be able to say go into an apprenticeship scheme, they would get that during the foundation year of their first step into university for some of them. So these are just two examples where I can see collaboration across sectors, where we've been able to offer holistic support to some of the most disadvantaged groups of young people, where we've actually seen results and sustained employment on the back of that as well.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. I noticed you made the point about sort of contextualization of functional skills there. And Sarah, that sounded a bit like what parts of the inclusive talent strategy are trying to do, sort of putting essential skills, functional skills into employability courses that are tailored to specific gaps and needs by employers. I wondered if you could say a bit more about that, and what is the role of employers there in terms of supporting a focus on essential skills.
Yeah, there's kind of a few different ways, and yeah, you're absolutely right. We've put a commitment into the inclusive talent strategy around having more kind of contextualized ESOL in particular, and exploring that more and supporting that further as well. Also kind of exploring and seeing how we can look at shorter courses, modular courses or units which are more easily available for employers to support, so that people who are in work can then undertake that training at the same time as being in employment as well, which obviously we'd want to see kind of employers support that as well, and we have been kind of conscious that the investment in skills from employers has also reduced kind of a huge amount over the years, but also there has been a very huge ask from employers as well, and there's been a lot of kind of multiple ways in which kind of employers are trying to be kind of engaged with too, in relation to the needs of the workforce, as well as understanding and interpreting the needs that their businesses have, and so kind of a couple of the things that we've introduced as a result of the inclusive talent strategy, and this is kind of our kind of flagship activity, I guess, in relation to it, is the introduction of sector talent boards, and that focuses on 6 priority sectors within London, and brings together employers from those sectors to be able to come together and talk about what the workforce needs are for those sectors, and be able to kind of have a voice in influencing the way in which that is provided, but also a kind of a more unified way to speak to employers about work experience or industry placements, or those types of activities as well. And I think we are also working really closely with Business London at the moment on the refresh of the local skills improvement plan. And in the last local skills improvement plan, essential skills was very much a part of that, as was transferable skills as something else that really employers need to see. And I'm sure that will continue kind of in what we see coming forwards as well. So yeah, hopefully that's answered the question.
No, that's really helpful. And yes, I think those local skills improvement plans, there's potential there maybe to take a stronger focus on, however we're calling them, transferable skills, but making it clear that sort of English, maths, literacy, numeracy are part of those, which I appreciate hasn't always been part of the remit in the past, but it's great. And I certainly know that Business London are very much sort of thinking about that as part of the next iteration of these plans. I'm glad you mentioned ESOL there as well, because there's been a lively chat around ESOL in the chat, which I think Rachel kindly kicked us off with, and wondering whether functional skills qualifications, how useful they are for ESOL learners. I wonder, Kirsty, could you say a bit about that? Because I know that ESOL is a big concern in the work that you do, but also you're constrained there because some of the programs like apprenticeships, there's no option for ESOL qualifications within apprenticeships. But I know that that's something that you give a great deal of consideration to in your network. So if I could quickly ask you maybe to talk a bit about that, and then I'm going to come back to the panel for their final reflections on a single change or improvement they would like to see in the system. So stand by for that as well. But Kirsty, tell us a bit about ESOL and how that works in a context where it's not always possible just to do an ESOL qualification.
Yeah, it is a real challenge, as people would imagine, and I think it's quite hard for trusts to get their head around how to access different pots of funding. Often there's not individuals in employers who know what funding is available, if there is funding available, how you access it. So there's a lot that I could say about how this is resourced, as well as anything else. But there's been some really great innovative practice, often designed by just individuals in trusts, in education teams, thinking what could work, and a lot of work on conversation clubs. So there are lots of things that you can do in the first year or so of health and care employment, particularly if you're entering at a kind of entry level role, support worker, support staff kind of level role, which intersects with this. And the conversation clubs have proved quite a successful way of entering into the ESOL space. That's not a formal ESOL course, and there's a lot more for lots of staff that needs to be done. But one thing that can achieve is sometimes they're not even badged as ESOL clubs. Sometimes they're called cake club or lunch club, or and the motivation really is to get people talking and a bit more open and confident about having those kind of conversations, and potentially to have a bigger conversation about engaging with a more in-depth course or a more formal type of learning. But there has been a lot of success in advertising them in those ways, rather than as a directly ESOL kind of course or intervention. because for a lot of people, there's quite a lot potentially at risk if you're saying, I don't fully feel confident in communicating in this language, even though I am employed here, right? So that's quite a lot for people to have to admit, and potentially even for managers to admit that that everybody is involved in a situation here where, particularly if somebody's in a clinical area and potentially taking notes, and if they don't feel fully confident in their understanding of the language, then there's a lot of risk to a lot of people there. So yeah, we found that as an effective intervention in the first place. There's absolutely tons more that could be done across health and care in East Seoul, and I'm sure people can imagine that. And I would love to see it better resourced as a whole thing. But yeah, those are kind of some early thoughts, I guess. Yeah.
No, thank you, Kirsty. I can see there's an interesting comment in the chat from Kate there as well about how do we also move from larger employers like yourself, and what more can be done amongst smaller employers as well, which is a really interesting dimension to think about. So we've got just a few minutes left, so I'm just going to come back around the panel. And the question just to finish up with is, if you could change one thing in the current system to improve the join up between essential skills and supporting people into work, what would that change be? And I'll ask people to be as brief as they can. So one quick change that you would, if there is such a thing, but one change that you would like to see. So perhaps, Sarah, can I come back to you on that one to kick us off with what's the one change that you would like to see happen?
Thanks, Alex. So in an ideal world, there'd be more money, but I think it not being in an ideal world, we would need to think about how we encourage more co-investment in essential skills. So that's just kind of an aside. But my one thing would be about focusing on better joined up pathways so that essential skills are part of a clear route into training and work and not being separated off, so that learners don't need to seek each component of their journey out separately. And very much as part of this, I'd want to be able to ensure that we better recognise the wider role of essential skills in supporting social inclusion, confidence and independence, so that we still need learning that is not only work focused, but is very much holistically about how we live our lives fully.
Thank you very much. Alice, your final reflections on joining up the essential skills and employment agendas.
Yes, I'm going to be cheeky and have two for young people.
That's fine.
So one is that 16 to 19 student premium, so that young people who are able to engage with mainstream education are better supported to get the English and maths they need to then progress. And then for that NEET cohort, I would like there to be a guarantee that part of their support package into work or education includes some element of English and maths.
Thank you very much. Philip, your final reflections, please.
Yeah, I really like what Kirsty was just talking about in terms of the Conversations Club. I think, again, issues around funding, but funding in work essential skills support as a standard in employment support would be an area that I think needs change. Or definitely looking at a lot of funding is often focused on the pre-employment. And then obviously getting someone into a job, but maybe looking at ongoing support within the workplace, where people that are often at risk of quitting within the first 6 months can be supported either through additional workplace literacy coaching, or a coach of some sort that can support them to actually be embedded within the workplace and start to think about career progression planning. So yeah, more funding for in-work essential skills support would be what I'd say.
Thank you. I think that's a really important part of the picture that has maybe dropped off a bit in recent years. And Kirsty, your final thoughts as well. One change you'd like to see. We are at time, but I'll just squeeze in your final recommendation if I can.
Well, I'll try and make it quick, and apologies that I am coming from an NHS point of view, so this is more NHS focused and wider than that. But it would be wonderful if all health and care employers were able to test, for want of a better word, English and math skills of staff at arrival, so that it happens for everybody. Because if it happened for everybody, if you don't need support in that area, great, fine, knock it off. But if you do, then it's not seen as such a shameful thing to admit, because we've had lots of feedback of students not even wanting to access the support that's there because they're so embarrassed about admitting to not having a grade 4 or whatever it is. And if it was more standard, you would hope that that would eat into that shame a bit. So yeah, that's my thought.
Thank you. I'm sure that's replicable to other employers and in other contexts as well. And yes, it's definitely a need to sort of normalize conversations around essential skills needs and remove some of that stigma. So thank you to all of our panelists. Really great contributions, lots of suggestions there how we might take the next steps in joining up between essential skills and work. Thank you to everybody who's joined the session. Really lively chat there, particularly on the ESOL dimension and how we best support ESOL learners in this context. I hope you found it useful along with the rest of the session. There was another parallel session running alongside this, which was looking at the role of technology in supporting people with essential skills. That session will be available to catch up on, and you'll receive details of that in our post-event wrap-up. We'll close things down for there, but thank you all very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at another event in the not too distant future.